Hello students, I hope you are doing well. This is Mr. Greg and I am glad we're going to be able to continue learning about electronics. So hopefully this will work out. It's my first time doing a recording like this, and I'm sure I'll get better as I do more and more of these, so just be patient with me on that, and maybe my setup will get a little better too. So anyway, got an exciting program today. We're going to talk a little bit about our joystick, and so I want you can pause the video after you learn this, but I want you to get out your joystick knob. I want you to get out your joystick module. It looks like this. And then I want you to get out your ribbon cable. So you can pause the video and get those components out of your kit and have them ready to go, and we'll hook them up. So before we hook everything up, I just want to review a little bit about what we've learned so far. As you remember, when we started off the class, we started with a simple circuit of a 5-volt input that looped around into a single resistor that we hooked to an LED, and then using the digital write commands we would turn the LED on and off, and of course that would go back to ground. And so we learned to do that. We learned to vary the brightness of the LED by controlling the PWM waves, the length of the PWM waves, and that would actually fool the eye to making it seem like the LED was dimmer or have more light. And then we learned that if we put two resistors together in series like this, then we could actually change the voltage out to a different circuit excuse me, and then we could measure that voltage. So we actually did that. We measured it on my handheld voltage meter, and we got a certain voltage. We actually calculated that voltage using Ohm's law, and we were right on there. And then we hooked it to the Arduino, and looking at the serial monitor, we were able to read that voltage electronically on our serial monitor. And then we were actually able to change that voltage by changing the different resistors and measure that. So then we progressed on to the potentiometer, which is the drawing I have here. And you remember all a potentiometer is two resistors hooked in series with a knob that can adjust. It has a wiper that can adjust that resistance depending on where you turn the knob. And so we calculated the amount of voltage out based on where the knob was, and we were actually able to hook that to the Arduino and see that change. And then we're actually able to hook that to an LED and change and actually dim the LED. And so that's kind of where we are now. So the next step in the process of this learning is to talk about the joystick. Right? I'm sure all of you are familiar with joystick, but you probably didn't know how they worked. And so I want to talk a little bit about that. All a joystick is really two potentiometers hooked together. You have the up and down potentiometer, the up and down part, the part that moves up and down, and that controls your Y, the voltage on your Y-axis. And then you have it that moves left and right, and that controls the X voltage using the resistance on the X. And then you have a push button. It goes in and out that you can use as a switch, and this is a switch here. And then of course that's connected to your 5-volt supply. And then where would this go? Obviously to ground. So this is basically how a joystick works. But just like in a potentiometer, you're not going to get a digital output. You're going to get that 0 to 1023 output number. That if you want it to make sense, again, we had to convert that to voltage. So with your joystick, in this case, when it's in the neutral position, you should get a reading around 512, because that's, and then if I move it to the left, you should get a reading of 0. Move it to the right, you should get 1023. And we'll talk more about that later. But now I just want to show you how we need to hook this up. And so I'm going to move, ignore all this other stuff. I probably should have taken it off, but I left it on here for ease of time. So, in fact, I'm going to do it this way. So, first thing we want to do is hook our ribbon cable. It looks like this. So that can focus. To our joystick. Now you can see the joystick, hopefully you can see, the joystick has 5 output pins, and they're labeled ground, 5 volt, voltage resistance X, voltage resistance Y, and SW for that switch. And so just to keep things simple, we're going to use 5 of the wires in conjunction, the ones next to each other, so that it hooks up nicely. And so I'm going to take the black wire and I'm going to hook that to ground. I'm going to take the white wire and I'm going to hook it to 5 volts. See if I can do this live. Then I'm going to take the gray wire here. I hope you can see this. Still getting a little bit of a shadow. And I'm going to hook it to VRX. I'm going to take the purple wire and hook it to VRY. And I'm going to take the blue wire and hook that to my switch. So your connection should look like this. These wires we won't use. And now hooking it to the Arduino, I am going to hook the black wire, obviously. Let's see if I can get this where you can see this. I'm going to hook the black wire to ground. Oh, my hand's in the way. And I'm going to hook the white wire to 5 volts. Right? Makes sense. So the good thing about the video is you can pause it. So then I'm going to hook my gray wire, which we identified as the X, X to 0 pin, A0, because that will be an analog. And then I'm going to hook my purple pin to A1 right next to it. And then, so that's 4 pins, and then I'm going to hook our switch is a switch, on off switch, right? And so that's going to be like a digital high and a digital low. And so I'm going to actually hook it to a digital pin over here, and I'm going to put it in pin number 2. If it'll reach, which I know it will, to pin number 2. These ribbon cables. I started to tell you to pull them off, but I didn't want to. So I'm going to put that in number 2. Alright, so just to review, white wire in 5 volt, black wire in ground, gray wire in A0, and purple wire in A1, and blue wire in pin number 2 over here on the opposite side. And this is all in your way. So we can move this. Alright. So now that we have this hooked up, let's put our knob on there. Knob. See that? It should just press right on there. It does have a direction it goes on, and there it is. Nice. Alright, now let's do some coding. So I'm going to open up a fresh new sketch. Get a sip of Coca-Cola. And so the first thing we need to do, obviously, is set up our variables, right? So let's think about this. What variables do I have? Well, I've got this variable, which is the x direction. This variable, which is the y direction. I have my switch. And then I've got to put these values that I read into a bucket that I can print out. So let's see, let's start with the X pin. That's going to be an integer. I'm going to say X pin. And I hook that to the AO pin. I got an integer Y pin. I hook that to A1, and then I've got this switch pin, and we hook that to 2, digital 2. Oh, alright, so what I'm going to do, since we have more time now, I'm going to be a good programmer, and I'm going to start putting notes out here that explains what I'm doing, and I expect you to do the same. And you don't have to copy mine word to word, but remember, anything that's past this backslashes, 2 backslashes, Arduino won't see that as a computer command, but just as notes. And so for your homework from now on, I want you to put notes in, because that's when people see your program, they may not understand what you're doing, and this helps them to follow it along. So there is that, and then we talked about these. We're going to have these values that come in from these pins, and so we need to put them somewhere so that we can read them. And so I'm going to set up sets up an X value. This sets up the Y value, and then S pin sets up switch. Alright, and let's see here. Alright, so that's that, and then we want to be able to see, so it's always good just to turn on your serial monitor, the good old trusty 9600 baud rate. And then what? Now I have pins that we've set up, so the next step is to set up the pin modes. So I'm going to do that. Pin mode. We have an X pin, and that is, we are reading from the X pin, so that's going to be an input. And pin mode. Y pin, and that's an input. Oops, input. Get the happy color. And then we've got that S pin. Ooh, spelled that wrong, didn't I? That S pin. And that is also an input. I'll scroll this down so we can see. Alright, pin modes. Now, one thing we have to do on our S pin, on our switch, is we have to either set that high or low. It's called using a pull-up resistor, or we're not going to use a pull-up resistor. We're just going to set it high so we don't have to put an extra resistor in there. I'll explain pull-up resistors in a future lesson, but right now we've got to do a command for that, a digital write command for the S pin, and we're going to set it high. That means it'll be on as standard, and then when we push the button, that'll turn it off. So that looks pretty good there. I'm going to go back and put in my notes. This turns on the serial monitor. This sets, let me move it over so you can make it bigger. This sets the X pin as an input. Sets the Y pin as an input. By doing this also helps you, reinforces what you're learning. It's S pin as an input, and this sets S pin high. So that looks pretty good. So we're going to go down here in our void loop. So we're going to be getting information from the Arduino, right? And we need to, or actually from the control, from the joystick, a command from the joystick. And so we need to be able to read that command. And since we hooked those, since this joystick is basically two potentiometers, which is an analog device, we connected it to the analog pins. And so to get the information off, we've got to do an analog read. So to set that command up, once we do our analog read, we've got to be able to put it somewhere, right? And that's the bucket. So we're going to do xval is equal, and we're going to do analog read, get that happy color, that means we put it in right. And what are we going to read? Well, we're going to read X pin. So this, oh, I shouldn't say that. Sets, or let's do it this way, reads X pin to X val. Alright, so we need to do the same thing for Y val. Analog read Y pin reads Y pin to Y val. And then, you guessed it, S val is not an analog pin but a digital pin, so we have to do a digital read of S pin. Reads S pin to S val. See how all this makes sense when you do it methodically and you name your variables something that makes sense. So I should probably put a delay in here. So I'm going to do delay dt. And that sets delay. And then I need to go back up here and declare that variable. And let's say, let's make it 500. Sets delay time. Alright, that looks pretty good. I'm going to minimize this back down. I sure wish it would make me readjust it. There, and then I'm going to bring in my cable and plug it in here, and then I'm going to download the program. I don't want to save it, I just want to download it. Thinking. Oh, what did happen here? NSP. This should be S val. You probably caught that. Nice. All right, let's try again. All right, well, what's the problem? We can't see anything. So to do that, we need to come down here and put it on our serial printer, right? So let's see here, serial dot print. Alright, I'm going to do what's I call a string. Not only me, but everybody. Alright, a string is basically a sentence that you can put on the serial monitor. And so I'm going to say X value equals, and I'm going to leave some space for that X value. I'm going to end it. I'm going to end it here. I'm going to make this bigger again. And basically this prints X value to this serial monitor. right? And then I've got to actually print the X value, so I do serial.print X val. And this prints the value. Alright, and then same thing for Y, obviously. Y value equals space base. Prints Y value to the serial monitor. Y val, capital Y val. And then, what do we want to do? The switch value, right? Serial.print, oops, quotation, switch value is, and that prints switch. It's high or low, but it's going to show as a 1 or what? 0, right? Binary number. Serial.print S, capital S, S val, and it prints the value. Alright, now let's download that. I don't want to save it. Gotta figure out how to turn that off. Oh, I got a problem. What is my problem? S val. S print serial was not declared. S val is up there. What have I done? Prints not declared in this scope. Serial print. See, one thing, I want to make this an LN for sure. Ah, no. S val, S val. Serial print. This is confusing me. I'm sure y'all are yelling at me because you see it. S val, Y val, X val. Huh. Oh. There it is. Did you see what I did? I didn't put the backslash. That's how we learn. Alright. So I'm going to go up here and turn on the serial monitor and see if I can get anything. Oh! I see one thing I want to do differently. I'm going to turn that off. I'm going to put a space so these don't run together. Like that. Still don't like it. Anyway, I'm not gonna worry about it. Alright, so you can see the switch. Oh, you can't see the switch. Let's move this over to here. I expect you to clean it up, not be a bad programmer like me. Make this look better. Instead of bothering me. Anyway, so the way this switch works, it actually this is the left. This is the left of the switch here. So your joystick, this would be up, this would be down, this would be right, and this would be left. So you can see as I move the joystick up, my Y value goes to 0. You see that? 0. And if I move it down, my value goes to 1023. So it's like an aircraft controller, right? Down increases the nose of the aircraft, right? Well, it increases the value of it. Now let's see, left is 0 and right is 1023. Isn't this cool? We can get all kinds of different values on our. Now we can really do something. I want to see. Alright, so we set our switch to high, as you can see, with the 1, and if I push the button, what happens? Ah! It goes to 0. Goes to 0. How about that? So your homework is to hook up LEDs to your breadboard and control how they light up based on where your value is. And I did that. I don't remember my code though, so I don't remember where this one goes. But I did that using the digital rights. Let's see here. This goes probably to ground. It does. So, see if I can pull up that program I did. File, open. I apologize. I should have had this one done. So I'm not going to show you because I'm not going to show you how it's done, but I am going to download it on there. And let's see, this is something else. So you're kind of getting a little washout there. But I hooked up a red, yellow, and green LED, and then I can control the dimness of them by moving my joystick up, down, left, and right. So I want you to write a program with the joystick like what we did, but I want you to include these LEDs, including the switch that you can turn on and off. So that's your homework. It's due next week. If you have any questions, give me a call. I appreciate you tuning in, and I will talk to you later.